Hit it, Phil.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Can it be the breeze that fills the trees with rare and magic perfume? Oh, no, it isn't the breeze, it's Jackson time. La-da-da-da.
Well, hello again. This is Buck Benny speaking. I just came on. I wanted to do this quick intro to this. We'll have the team on in just a second. We recorded this back right after Tommy Smothers' death. I was going to release it, and then I thought I would wait and see if we were going to play it at the International Jack Benny Fan Club convention, which is coming up this next weekend. It just wasn't going to fit there, and so I thought, I'll release it here. I wanted to do something that I thought Tommy would be proud of, and so I kind of wanted to put together some clips and things. Terry will mention that he has an interview component on here, so it'll go from our discussion, my group's discussion, into the interview clip that is just like a minute and a half or something that Terry did. This is part of that interview, and it'll say on that clip where you can get to the rest of the interview. And then after that will be an appearance that the brothers did on the Jack Benny special, one of the Jack Benny specials from 1966. And so that will play. And it's a short bit, not too long. And then after that, I found another clip that I liked that I wanted to put in here. So it's going to be of George Burns and Jack Benny with the Smothers Brothers. And it's a great clip. So that'll be next. And then after that, we'll have the entire Jack's very last episode of his regular television show from 1965 that had the Smothers Brothers as his guest, and they took over the whole episode pretty much, and so it's great having them on there. So it's a nice tribute from Jack sort of to Tommy. So I hope Jack would be happy with this, and I hope Tommy would as well. So I just thought I'd explain it that much to you. The other thing is I hope you enjoy the Super Bowl. I doubt many of you will tune into this when I release it because, of course, we're competing against the Super Bowl, which is pretty fierce competition. But if you're a true Jack Benny fan, you should be watching this instead of the Super Bowl, or if you're a Tommy Smothers fan, or both. Anyway, the other piece that I thought I'd get on here was that I'm changing up our YouTube channel a little bit. We usually have, of course, our Jack Benny shows that come out every Sunday night at 7 Eastern Time, 4 o'clock Pacific. But that same time, we're going to, on Wednesdays, start having my daughter and I presenting Walt Disney Wednesday, where we're going to present the Disneyland shows from the 1950s and things. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. We'll start that up this week. So tune in on Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific for our very first episode of the Walt Disney Wednesdays. And then on Friday, Mindy and I, who's done all my intros for our Judy Garland podcast, will be doing with me. We'll be introducing her Judy Garland's television shows, and we'll start those from the beginning and things. And so I think that'll be entertaining too. And that, of course, is going to be Fridays. I thought Friday was a good night to have Judy Garland. So we kick off your weekend with Judy Garland. It'll be Fridays at 7 again Eastern and 4 o'clock Pacific out here on the West Coast. So hope you're going to enjoy all that and tune into some of those and see what you think. I think you'll enjoy. I'll be in all those intros, but I'll have different people on each one, like we said, and sometimes we'll have guests and things that'll come in. But anyway, without further ado, here we are introducing the Tommy Smothers and Jack Benny. You'll notice I'm in a Seahawks shirt. This is back when the Seahawks still might be in it to get to the playoffs and things. So I was hopeful. So it kind of ties into Super Bowl anyway. So enjoy the Super Bowl, and we'll see you next time. Well, hello again. This is Buck Benny speaking. I am joined by John Henderson and Terry Phillips. Hey, John. Hey, Terry.
Hey.
We decided to do a special podcast kind of as a tribute to the Smothers Brothers, and especially Tommy Smothers, because he passed away this week. And we've all been affected by this in some way or another. And I was have always enjoyed them when they've been on things, and Terry probably more than the rest of us, in that Terry actually interviewed Tommy. When did you interview Tommy?
It was in it was in 2010, in March of 2010.
Okay, excellent. And that was the first time you'd met him, or?
We actually did it on the phone, and then I went and saw the brothers perform shortly after that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
They were doing a show nearby, and it was great. It was just a fantastic concert, and they did, of course, a lot of music and a lot of comedy. And Tommy did his yo-yo tricks. He had this character he called the Yo-Yo Man, and he was really good at it.
Yes.
Wow. I actually saw them in concert. It would have been before 2010 because I wasn't married yet, maybe 2005-ish. And they were doing a tour. And so, of course, I got tickets, and I got tickets for my brother and his girlfriend. And then he said, oh, I can't make it. So I took my two sisters, but they had never heard of the Smothers Brothers. They didn't know anything about the Smothers Brothers. And I was so surprised because they did it at a casino, and it was quite like a small, intimate sort of gathering. And so it was amazing to be able to see them, and to see them so close. And it was just like they were young in the 60s. The only difference was maybe like one mustache. So it was great. It was awesome.
Right. And that's the impression I got, that their comedy was kind of timeless, and they were able to revisit it at any point and get right back into it. Just like it didn't, they never came off as like some acts do of trying to recapture something. It was like it was always there. So I've always been impressed with that.
They did one political joke that I remember, and it was about the word politics. Tommy said, you know, the origin of the word politics? And Dick said, no, what? He said, it comes from the Greek, poly, meaning many, and ticks, meaning blood-sucking parasite.
Well, that's not even a joke. That's just what it really means, right? Anyway.
Yeah. So are we going to get into your interview? Are we going to talk about it, or are we going to leave that as a sort of surprise?
Well, I actually have posted an excerpt from that interview online. I'm going to save the whole interview, which runs about 15 or 20 minutes, for my new Patreon page to support the theater.
Smart.
I'm happy to tell you about it if you like. It focused largely on the theme of that episode of my radio show. This is, again, back in 2010. The theme of that episode was free speech in the workplace. And of course, the Smothers Brothers got fired by CBS for exercising their contractual right to free speech. They had built into their contract the right to have creative control. And CBS, the same network I had worked for, refused to let them say all of the things they wanted to say. And so there was a big fight over this. And eventually, Tom, who was really the creative genius behind that show, said, well, you know, we're going to put this on whether you like it or not. And they said, well, we don't like it, and it's our network. And so they said, we're not putting this on, which was a violation of their contract. Right. And so they pulled the plug on the show, and the Smothers Brothers sued CBS in federal court, and they won. And CBS had to pay them something like $750,000.
Wow.
In damages.
Yeah.
It's nice to win a victory like that, but I would say it's even more nice to have had more seasons of the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour.
Of course,
right.
Of course. There's an irony in this story, which is that the radio station where I was doing my show, which was called Quality of Life, didn't like some of the things that I was doing. Oh. And so they fired me, and I hired a lawyer, and I won.
Wow.
We settled out of court, and you know,
worth $750,000. Like,
it was not $750,000. No. But they did have to pay me, and yes, of course, I would have preferred to keep doing the show. But then I probably wouldn't be able to do this. So maybe it was
Yeah.
a good.
How long did your show run?
It was 5.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
And
not
it
a
was on
short
the
run.
NPR stations in Central California.
Yeah. Wow.
It was fun. I really enjoyed it. Got to interview a lot of people. We had listener calls, and it was great. And I got to talk to Tommy Smothers.
And do you have like the tapes of it or anything, or the? Okay, great.
Yep. And I'm
What
going to
is
start
that? I've never
posting
seen
them
that
online.
before.
I was gonna say you should start posting those. I don't know if if
This
the
is the first
station
one.
owns part of it or anything. Or
No, it's all mine. I own all the content.
oh,
And
nice.
so this is the first bit of that series that I have made available subsequent to that. And of course, the other bittersweet thing that happened after I was fired by that radio station is I won an award, which I have on my wall here somewhere. Yeah, from the Northern California Art Radio Television News Directors Association for
Wow,
a
that's awesome.
couple of interviews that we did.
Nice.
But you were mentioning offline that he actually said if he were to do it all over again, he wouldn't have chosen the politics over the comedy.
What he said, and you can actually hear this on my YouTube channel, is he wished that he had been more articulate. He'd been better at expressing himself, particularly in dealing with CBS, because he was angry, and that wasn't helpful in their show. So that's the only regret that he had. If he'd had it to do over again, he said he would have been more articulate.
Yep.
Yeah. So what is the YouTube channel? If we're looking
It's Terry Phillips.
just search Terry Phillips and
just the Terry Phillips channel.
Yeah. Excellent.
And I'll try to put it on the Imaginary Theater, a link to it on the Imaginary Theater.
Yeah, and I'll put a link to it on this show so they can go and grab that. Do you want me to air it? The clip?
Well, you can certainly air the excerpt from that interview.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be great.
But I think I'm going to save the full interview for my new Patreon channel, which I'm just starting up.
No, so I'll go ahead and what I'm going to do is after our discussion, I'll air that clip because it's very short and it captures Tommy more recently talking back about what he was doing back then, and then we'll go from that into the clip from Jack's special from 1966 that featured the Smothers Brothers in color and everything, and Jack in color, which is always nice to see. And he has some really nice interaction with them. It's a nice little clip, 7 minutes or something. And then we'll go from that and play Jack's very last television episode. It starred, of course, Tommy and his brother Dick, and they pretty much took over the show. I mean, Jack just, again, as Jack so often does, it shows that he's okay, whoever gets the laugh, and that he was fine with him doing that. The only other time I recall him doing that to this extent, giving somebody the entire show, was Johnny Carson, when he had Johnny Carson and pretty much did a showcase of Carson. And I don't know if he's doing that because he's like these guys deserve their own show, and so I'm going to give them a platform, and because it really feels like he's almost guest starring on his own show, which is very strange, but it's charming and just a great episode to present, because you can see their love and admiration for him, and his love and admiration for them kind of goes back and forth, and it's like I said, it's wonderful. I love the part where he says something like, "Oh, it's like talking to Dennis Day." And talking with Tommy, and I thought that's pretty funny. That was pretty accurate too. Anyway, just a wonderful episode for us to present to folks. It is part of the syndication package too, so you can catch it on television wherever it's being rerun. I think over on Antenna TV, but it might be on a different platform now, or a couple different platforms, which is great. I love that they for the last decade or more, probably 15 years, they've had the Jack Benny show being shown where more people can catch it on just regular television. Certainly the channel, the cable channels and things. Because for years it wasn't. I swear it was out where you couldn't find it from like the late 90s all the way until like 2000 or until 2010 or 2015. I'm not sure like when it came back. And then, but since it came back, it's been out there continuously, switch channels and things. But anyway, this is a chance for you to enjoy that episode. Let's just go around and share anything about Tommy or Dick or the episode itself. I thought it was an interesting episode in that they didn't get a writing credit on it that I could see, but they definitely wrote most of this episode, I would think. And I'm sure his writers wrote some of it. I think the bomb sketch at the end would be my guess that was Jack's writers writing for them versus them writing for themselves, but I assume they also allowed them to ad lib or change things around and so forth. Anyway, let's go over to John first. John, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm going to give away the episode, so if anybody wants to, go forward first, that's fine. But I think that
just go forward through John's part, but not for the rest of us. That make sure you listen.
That's right. Yeah, I think the bomb sketch at the end was the weakest part of the episode. Although the ending with the dummies was, was kind of fun. But I loved the rest of the episode. I love the Smothers Brothers. I had a best of CD when I was a kid, and I was just thinking now, why haven't I bought the rest of the albums since then? So I might do that when we hang up, or at least a few at a time, because it was great. And of course, a handful of episodes of the comedy hour. I love the Smothers Brothers. I think they're very talented, especially when they've worked out a bit. And so I feel like this was like the best way to watch it, because there was one bit that I'd heard before, so it was like to be able to see it rather than just hear it, which was the boil that cabbage down song. And then there's one that I'd never heard, which was obviously one that they do, which was the I can't remember what it's called, the Lonely Man or whatever it was. And then there was a new, which must be original to this episode, that they open with, which is the Love and Bloom theme song, the theme song of Jack Benny. And they had written a bit very much in their style, and it was great. It was fun to see something brand new. And then, like you say, the interactions between Jack Benny and them was also great and fun. So I loved it. I thought it was a great episode.
Agreed. And I love that they played with this theme song. That was fun. Like I told you guys off camera before the show, I was really enamored with their singing and just how beautiful their voices were together. And it made me think I'm going to look on Spotify to see, I'm sure a whole bunch of their albums are out there, and I want to capture if there's any albums that are just kind of straightforward. It sounds like there might be a few that are just music, or certainly there'll be ones that focus a little more on the music than a little less on the comedy, or vice versa. So it'll be
I totally agree. I love the music, and I've actually said, like, I was searching for iTunes for folk music like that. I searched 60s folk music. I couldn't find anything, and I'm like, Stephanie, where can I find folk music like the Smothers Brothers that's not comedy? That's my wife, and she said they don't really have it. They were really good musicians. Like it's not like you can just find that. The closest I found, which are great musicians, would be Peter, Paul, and Mary. Yes. And that's sort of a similar vein, but it's still not quite the same. They were very unique.
Well, I was going to say about Peter, Paul, and Mary, the interesting thing, I was going to mention the same group, Peter, Paul, and Mary. Also, they happen to be on the Jack Benny show at one point too, which we'll present that at some point. But they, at one point, tried a comedy album as well.
Oh yeah.
Or at least once, maybe more. But I can't remember which one, whether it was Peter or Paul.
I feel like I have all the
Who's
Peter,
the
Paul,
tall
and Mary
one?
albums. And there's a couple of songs that are very, comedy songs, like the Chocolate one, and maybe a couple others. But I don't know about a whole album. Maybe.
But in this case, I believe it was either the first half of the album was all songs, and then you flip it over, and on the backside it's all comedy, or vice versa. Like, so I mean, it was like for a whole 20-minute stand-up bit that one of them did. And I want to say, I'm not even sure which one it was. It was either Peter or Paul, I could say. And they were funny. It was pretty good. I mean, it wasn't it wasn't quite to the level, certainly, of the Smothers Brothers or of, anybody if you're just going to buy a straight old comedy album. But I thought it was passable. It was interesting. And I think it was in there. I want to say it was the later years of them. So like the late 60s, early 70s or something. I think they were realizing folk music was kind of starting to drift away. And they were like, okay, let's add a different layer to it or a different edge to it. And I think what it was, I think he even mentions on the album itself that they started to do this with audiences just as, in between songs and
Yeah.
things. And they realized, oh, this kind of works. And so they wanted to try it on record. So yeah, anyway. Terry, what are your thoughts on this?
The most interesting thing about this show to me was that it was showing the Smothers Brothers kind of early in their run. I mean, they'd been at it already for some years, but they were still working the material. And for instance, that joke that bit that Tom does about pumas.
Yeah.
At one point, Dick says to him, "There are no pumas in America." And later in their career, Tommy comes back with, we allow everybody in America. It was a great line, and it wasn't in this version yet. I don't know whether it was because they hadn't developed that line yet or because they were, cutting it down for time, because, it was live. It was not live.
Yeah.
It was television.
Yeah.
But little things like that I found interesting. I was a huge fan of theirs. I watched their entire television series, the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour. I also bought the CDs or the DVDs. And in that, they also talk about their career and what happened during each episode of that show. And that's really worth watching if you haven't seen that.
Yeah. I was trying to see if it was streaming somewhere. It doesn't appear to be. I mean, there's a few episodes.
Well, it's on. I think it's on in the Internet Archives. I believe you can find it there.
Okay.
Yeah, well, like you were saying about the changes, I do love how they are the kind of artists that can do a bit and do it the same every time, but don't do it word for word the same, but just do like the bits the same. Yeah.
And Tom talks about in an interview that I saw with him, he talks about wanting to do something different every show. The two of them, I think, got their biggest career boost in San Francisco at a club called the Purple Onion. And a lot of famous acts in the 60s were performing at the Purple Onion. And they did, I don't know, 4 or 5 shows a night. And so Tom tried to do something different every show, every performance. And after a while, they were running out of material. And someone said to him, "You don't have to do something different every show. You're going to have a different audience every performance.
Right.
You reuse the same material." And that kind of caught fire with him. And that's why they were able to not do word for word, but to hone it and make it sharper and sharper.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that when I was in junior high school, there was a teacher who was related to the Smothers Brothers. And because Tommy went to San Jose State, and he was a gymnast when he was in college. Yeah. But there was a teacher there whose last name was Remick, and Tom and Dick's mother's maiden name was Remick, and so he called himself the Smothers Brothers' mother's brother. And that's all I remember about Mr. Remick. There was one other observation I wanted to make about this Jack Benny show episode. By the way, it was not his last show. It was his last regular weekly show. Of course, he had specials after that. He had a couple of farewell episodes and other specials. But yes, you're right. This was his last
in his 15-year run of television regular.
Correct.
Series shows.
If you look up the Jack Benny Show on IMDb, this is going to be the last listing because it's the last one called The Jack Benny Show.
Right. Well, John, in that sketch that you didn't care for, and I also thought it was, not their strongest part of the show, there were a couple of English characters, and they were actually British, but there were a couple of other performers listed on IMDb, a couple of British women. Actually, one was Australian and the other was British. And somehow they got cut from this. I didn't see any explanation for why they weren't in this episode, but maybe
Well,
as with so
also
many
they could have
things.
been on the episode, but not the one we saw. In that you got to
Maybe there
remember,
were
this
rights
is in syndication today, so they've had to cut. Usually they cut like the songs out,
Or like the commercial.
right?
Yeah.
And so they had to cut something, right? And so maybe they cut out the women's going, well, we're not going to cut out Tommy or Dick, so we'll cut out these women's part. I don't know. So
yeah, I thought the interaction between the Smothers brothers and Jack Benny was also very fun, and I loved how Jack. It seemed like he tried to ad lib something, doing like a callback to the Puma, and then Dick ad libbed something back to him, and Jack is just losing it a little bit there.
Yeah.
That was so fun.
Well, Jack often, you could tell. I mean, he's thinking, and so like, oh, I got one, and then he'll throw it out there and he'll be so proud of himself. He does this with Fred Allen. He does it with Bob Hope. Lots of folks. But if they toss something back his way, his mind just doesn't work to where he can immediately throw something back at them. He's kind of stuck at that point. So
Yeah,
that's when he usually defaults to, well, if my writers were here or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, and I like how they in the bit where they reference Jack Benny and how he's famous for looking at the audience, and the joke with that was so funny.
Yes. And then I think Jack looks at the audience while they're saying that about him or something. So I thought that was great too. No, I love their interactions with him. I think that they're great. I mean, this is just a really enjoyable episode, especially, like I say, for Smothers Brothers fans. This is like, oh, a little 10-minute bit with them or something. This is with them throughout the whole episode, and a little bit of Jack thrown in, I would say, more than anything else. But a great way to celebrate Tommy, and just what a great wit and talent Tommy was. I wish they'd done more throughout the 70s and so forth. It seemed like after the 60s and after their show got canceled, they sort of kind of went away for a while and then would come back at different times, little ebbs to their career and things. I'm so glad that they came back again here, like you say, in the 2010s and things, and did some performances and things. So
but they weren't really gone. They were doing nightclubs
and things throughout the whole time.
I saw them after I did that radio interview with them, and it was as if they had not missed one day.
Right.
Just as sharp,
Yep.
just as talented, and the audience responded. And by the way, it was a very diverse audience, old people, young people, and everybody really, really loved them.
Yeah, well, like I said, my sisters who'd never seen them before, they came out of the show and they love them too. That's the great. They're the kind of group where you don't have to know them to enjoy the act. It's a great act in itself. Whereas sometimes with Jack Benny, you sort of have to get to know the character a bit before you really appreciate it. But
that's right, John. Yeah. And with their politics, you didn't have to agree with their point of view. They were able to play it, down the middle, pretty much, with a little bit of a jab at both left and right. When they were on TV, they were making fun of Lyndon Johnson, and then they were making fun of Richard Nixon, because that's when their show was on, in between those two, overlapping those two presidencies. And
do we know roughly how many seasons they had? It was at least 3, but I think it might have been.
Well, it was 67 to 69.
Okay.
And it was 3.
And it was in their 3rd season that they got fired.
Yeah.
By the way, they used to hate. Tommy would say repeatedly whenever anybody would refer to CBS canceling their show, he said, no, they didn't cancel the show. We were renewed. They got another season lined up. Their ratings were great. They were the #1 rated show. They beat Bonanza.
Wow.
So he said, no, we didn't get canceled. We got fired.
That's totally true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about the politics is it was funny, right? So even if you didn't agree with it, you got to agree it's funny.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's not that politics didn't enter into it, because when Nixon became president, apparently his people did put pressure on CBS, because they were being pretty harsh on his war policies in particular. It was in the middle of the Vietnam War, and the Smothers Brothers had performers on who had really been effectively blacklisted. Pete Seeger, for example, and they were, of course, very political in many cases. Harry Belafonte was on, and he had not been allowed on network television for years. The Smothers Brothers brought him back, and there were new acts who had mostly not been seen on network TV, newer performers, and they were very courageous. And so it was a great opportunity, not that dissimilar from Ed Sullivan, except that with Sullivan there was less politics.
Yeah.
But still, they were a great variety show in bringing acts to the general public that had mostly not been on mainstream primetime network TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I always like to look at the references, and maybe you guys can explain the references a little better than I can. Jack Parr, comedian?
He was the original Tonight Show talk show host. The Tonight Show was started by Jack Parr.
And then the other one was Bertrand Russell. I've heard that name before.
Bertrand Russell was a philosopher. I think so you're talking about the references that Jack made during that bombing bit, right?
I think so. It's references in the episode to people.
Yeah, the irony is that Bertrand Russell had been around prior to that. Jack Parr had not really been on TV until after the Second World War. So it was
that's right.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, that's a goof. I gotta add it to IMDb.
Well, and Jack Benny had given Jack Parr a huge break. In 1947, he hired him, or his company hired him to take over during the summer hiatus of Jack's show. And so he did a decent amount of episodes, maybe 18 episodes or something like that he did. They're very funny, very well done. There's a number of them missing, but as part of the tobacco releasing of scripts and things, whatever, the entire run of scripts is available. So I've thought of us redoing some Jack Parr episodes at some point that are lost, and that would be kind of fun. But it'd be hard to Jack Parr was had such an interesting delivery. He'd be hard to replicate, I would think.
And in some ways, John, Jack Parr was a bit of an inspiration to the Smothers Brothers, because he also had disagreements with the network over censorship.
Oh.
In his case, it was NBC. And Jack Parr had a joke in which he refers to a WC, a water closet, a toilet.
Yeah.
And one of the censors at the network said that was not appropriate for television.
Right.
And so they cut the joke from his broadcast. And so the next night he said, there's got to be a better way to make a living than this. And so I'm not doing this anymore. And he walked off in the middle of the show. He walked off
Oh my goodness.
the set, leaving Hugh Downs, who was his Ed McMahon, his announcer and sidekick, to handle the rest of that show. And then he went away, and he came back after coming to some kind of an accommodation with NBC. And his first words were, "As I was saying," and then he went on to say, "As I was saying, there's got to be a better way to make a living than this. Well, I've been looking for it and I haven't found it, so I'm gonna keep doing this."
Yeah.
But it really made the point that
See, to me, there's a through line that follows from Fred Allen to Jack Parr to the Smothers Brothers, which is them always having to tangle with network sponsors, everybody, because they were and the through line too is that they never quite understood why none of them could easily accept, oh, fine, I'm on your outlet, change what you will and tell me what you want, what you're okay with me doing, and I'll do that. They were, which is what seems like most of the other comedians would do. They would just know what to stay in their lane and that sort of thing. Whereas these guys, if you did that, they would not let it go easily. They would argue and fight and be like, what are you talking about? I do comedy. I'll do whatever I want to do. And you guys want me to be on your network or sponsor my show. And so you should sponsor whatever I want to do and not try and change me or whatever. And that's sort of
it's the
what
same thing
followed
at
them
the
to Trump.
it's the same thing at the local level too. That's exactly what happened to me.
Yeah.
The managers of that public radio station said, well, it's not what one of our sponsors wants to hear, so you have to change it. And I said, I don't care what your one sponsor wants to hear. We have a contract. It's my show, and you don't have to put it on the air, but you cannot tell me how to present the content of this program. And the stupid thing is, it was a popular show, and just because one sponsor didn't like it didn't mean that most of the others would like it.
Right.
I've never understood that irrational perspective of fear that somebody is going to say, oh, that's offensive to me. Well, then don't watch or don't listen. If you don't like it, there's a little knob there, turn it off.
Yeah.
So I guess that through line that I'm talking about goes from Fred Allen to Jack Parr to the Smothers Brothers to Terry Phillips.
That's right.
And
I should change my name to Jack.
They're all kind of equals if you think.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how television has changed, and I'm pretty sure in this episode they mention how, if we were on like Johnny Carson later at night, well, then we could say this or that. So yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting piece too. There's a mention about Johnny Carson in this episode, right? And I was watching, there's a piece like where from Jack's special that we were going to do that we'll do eventually, Jack's second farewell special, which is his last special, where they joke about Johnny Carson, what they can do late at night and things, which I thought was interesting, that it's an echo of this episode with mentioning of what Carson can do, what they can't do, and so forth. But I thought that was interesting as well. The other thing I thought I'd mention too is that if you look out there on YouTube, I'm not going to show these clips because they're stamped with like the Smothers Brothers show, and I mean, I think the idea is they want you to get their CD or their Blu-ray or whatever, which is great. I mean, you should do that. I think that's a great way to go to get seasons of their show. But anyway, it's they've got clips out there with Jack Benny with them from the Smothers Brothers show. Certainly, there's a clip of Jack and George Burns doing a take on where they're dressed. They've got the red jackets on, just like the Smothers Brothers do. They're doing their bit of comedy with Jack being Tommy and George being Dick. And it's a funny bit. They do a good job with it. And then at some point, the Smothers Brothers come out and interrupt them, and it's all four of them together. It's a charming little clip, and so you should search that one out.
I'm pretty sure that episode is on the DVD, but I don't think it's in print anymore. I'm not sure it's easy to find.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So go to your local Goodwill, find your
exactly.
Anyway. But unless there's anything else to add, I think we'll let them enjoy Tommy and Dick Smothers, and we'll really miss Tommy. And it's nice that he had a nice full life, 86 years old and things as he passed, but it would have been lovely to have him for a few more years as well. So anyway, we can at least have this tribute to him. And Terry, something else here?
I'm just going to say that I think it's now time to correct Tommy. Mom really did like you best.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Well, and I love when they refer to the dad. Oh yeah, Dad was different or whatever. He didn't like Dick. And then he's okay, well then he liked you best or whatever. No, he hated me, but he didn't like Dick. I love that. Anyway, enjoy, and we'll see you folks next time. Oh, just to tell you guys too, We're releasing this. This is we're recording this on Saturday. It'll be out. This will be out on Sunday at our normal release time. Sunday at 4 Eastern, 7 on the West Coast, and then following immediately after this, we will have the New Year's one of our New Year's shows where we'll be presenting one of my very favorite episodes of the Jack Benny Show ever, which is his recreation of the New Year's fantasy that we recorded a few years ago. So that'll be fun to present as well. So enjoy that and have a great New Year's, everybody, and go Seahawks. All right.
Is there anything you would do differently if you had it to do over again?
Very little. Very little. I thought we did everything to just. I wish I'd been more articulate. I would have done something different. I would have tried to kept my sense of humor in the last year. And during the last year, it got very tense with CBS and with the politics and the FCC, and I started taking myself very seriously, and I lost the joy. And I always tell the story that when we were fired in that 69 and that 70, 71, everything was dreadfully serious. Every subject came up, I would talk about it in the darkest sense of what was wrong. Then I saw Jane Fonda on television one time with Johnny Carson. She was dreadfully serious about burning babies in Vietnam and plight of the farm workers, and I just kept. I was kind of agreeing with her, but I just said, "Dan, I don't like listening to this. Now, what is it?" And it struck me. I said, "There's no joy. There's no sense of humor." And it just, boom, was an epiphany for me. I just turned it around. I said, I'm not gonna keep looking for the issue. The issue will find me, and when it's passionate, I will speak up. But otherwise, I'm going to be funny.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, it's unusual to find a team that's adept at both comedy and music. And it's even more unusual when that team turns out to be brothers. And believe me, for what I'm paying them, they should be Siamese twins. But anyway, here they are, the Smothers brothers. Well, boys, I want to say it's a real pleasure to have you on the show.
Well, it's a pleasure being had. What Tommy means, it's a pleasure for us to be on your show.
Oh.
Yes, and I can't tell you what an honor it is to be working with one of my favorite personalities, a man whose artistry is unsurpassed,
Tommy.
A giant in this industry who brings joy and happiness to wherever he goes.
Tommy.
For a man off stage and on stage, living like a giant pillar of excitement and
Tommy,
pride.
now, Tommy, you don't overdo it like
You're
that.
always putting me down.
I'm not
All I try to do is give
now,
a man
don't get mad at me. I'm
a
just
compliment.
trying to... I don't care what you're trying to...
Wait a minute. Look, Tommy, see, what Dick means is you don't have to be so flowery.
Yeah.
You know, about me anyway. You can say what you want without going overboard.
Okay. It's nice to be on your dumb show.
Dick, why don't you mind your own business?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But you know, I can't get over it. You two are such opposite types. Are you really brothers?
I am. I don't know about it.
I have the strangest feeling I'm talking to Dennis Day.
Well, Mr. Benny, it's true, really. We're brothers.
You are.
And my mom always liked my brother best.
Now, you stop that.
Well, she did. She liked you
did not.
best,
Now,
and she
don't
never
get mad.
liked me.
She did
My
not.
mom liked my brother
That is
best
a
and
lie.
never
You
liked me.
shouldn't say things
You
like
got
that.
a bass, and all I got was a little guitar. That does not deny that mom didn't like you best.
You wanted a guitar.
Wait a minute. Excuse me. I didn't mean to serve it. Now, Tommy, look, you're always saying your mother liked Dick. You're always saying that your mother liked Dick best.
Because it's true. That's
not
why I say
true.
it. It is true.
Be quiet.
Mom liked you best.
Well, wait a minute. How about your father? Did he like Dick best?
Well, no, he didn't like Dick too much.
Well, there you see, it evens it up.
No, it doesn't. He hated me.
Oh, he did so. He did not. You act like a fool. You
Look,
can't-
fellas, boys, if I...
He's serving it again.
If I want family arguments, I can watch Peyton Place. Now, how about doing your number?
All right, Mr. Benny.
Okay.
And now, here they are, ladies and gentlemen, two of the brightest, freshest young faces in show business today.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my brother and I really appreciate that reception.
Yeah, we appreciate that reception, my brother and I.
I
My
already...
brother and I. Brother and me.
I already said
My
that.
brother and I.
I already said that. Anything you do is wrong. You've yet to do anything right.
I do so.
You do not.
I do. I know that Mom always liked you best. My mom always liked my brother best. She never liked me. My mom never liked me.
All right.
She always liked you best.
All right. Mom liked me. Mom liked me best. And do you know why? Because you held the mortgage on the house.
Well, I don't care. Brothers should get equal. And you always got the biggest. Mom gave you size 10 shoes. She only got me size 6.
Well, I happen to have bigger feet.
Yeah. And she gave you bigger feet, too. It's not fair. Mom always got you the best toys, too.
Oh.
You got the best.
All right, all right. We
got the best toys.
We shouldn't argue.
Always got the best.
It's not nice. After all, you are my older brother.
I'm his old... Oh, yeah? You're the oldest.
I am not.
Then why was I always the baby? How come they always call me the baby?
You weren't housebroken until you were 12.
I was 11. Get your facts straight, brother.
Well, you're the
brother.
oldest.
Wait till I say brother. Get your facts straight, brother.
You're the oldest.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, let me... A double yeah to you.
Well, hey, fellas, Tommy or Dickie, would you please come out here? We'd
Here, let me take this.
Oh, thank you.
I'll give you.
We'd like you to settle something for us.
All right.
Yeah, which of... Oh, now I'm myself.
Yeah.
Which of us do you think is the older?
You mean which of you two are the older?
Yeah. Which is the oldest?
Don't do that. That is for horses. You tell the age of horses by
You
looking
mean it
at their
doesn't work
mouths.
with people's teeth?
Well, it might for me, but not for him. You see, his teeth are only 6 months old.
8 months and get your facts straight. Tell me, fellas, how do you like the way we did your act?
I thought it was perfect. Just great.
Yeah, I thought it captured it right to a T. It was just fantastic the way it captured the act.
Really liked it, huh?
Yeah, I really did. Which one played me?
You know, we had the same trouble when we did Nelson Eddy and Jeanette MacDonald.
Jack, I
thought you were Jeanette MacDonald.
I was a darling, Jeanette. I think you opened your mouth and just told our age.
You know, before we go any further, though, I want to thank you two both, for my brother and myself, for appearing on our show tonight. You know, it's a great honor for us to have you here, and
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
The reason, especially we like it because you two are such great friends to each other.
Well, that's right. I guess Jack is about the closest friend I've got.
Yeah, you know, we kid around a lot, you see, but there's nobody that I have more respect for than George. I've always said George Burns is the funniest man alive. George is in a class by himself.
You're just modest. When it comes to comedy, Jack Benny wrote the book. Nobody can take a line and get as much out of it as Jack.
No, George, you're the great.
Oh, come on, you're the champ.
Oh, tell me, Mr. Burns, what in your opinion do you think has made Jack Benny such a great comedian?
In my opinion?
Yeah.
Do you really want to know?
Uh-huh.
I don't want him to hear this.
Okay.
I couldn't say this in front of Jack. But who taught him everything he knows? I taught him everything he knows. Jack had an act. It wasn't so hot. The act needed something. He didn't know what. I said, Jack, if you want to pull him in, go get yourself a violin. You can kill the people and fill up the room. Play some corny melody like Love in Bloom. Tell me, have you ever seen him take this pose? Well.
Yeah, that's my favorite pose.
That was mine. I taught him everything from what to say to fiddling. I taught him everything he knows.
Well, I really don't understand. What do you mean that George Burns isn't that great?
Well, you see, Tommy, nobody does it alone.
Yeah.
I taught George everything he knows. I remember the first time I saw him work. I was just a kid. He smoked a pipe in his act and bombed. It was awful. I went up to him and I said, Mr. Burns? And he said, yes, kid. And I said, get rid of that pipe and put a cigar in the act. Well, he did it, and the rest is history. It even brought his voice down 2 octaves.
Tell me, Mr. Burns, what else did you teach Mr. Benny?
What else?
Uh-huh.
Did you know that Jack is actually from Philadelphia?
No.
I told him Waukegan is a funnier place to be from.
I don't want to take anything away from George, you understand?
Sure,
But he used to have a spot in his act that was just nothing. Nothing. 10 solid minutes of fruit ducking.
Fruit ducking?
Yes. He always sang a slow ballad, and I told him, Mr. Burns? He said, yes, kid. I said, if you can't sing good, sing fast.
Mr. Burns, did you teach Mr. Benny how to be cheap?
Some things don't have to be taught.
George, come here. If we finish line, I've been thinking it's all true in a way.
I guess it is, Jack.
Now, we've taught each other a lot over the years.
Well, mostly how wonderful it is to have a good friend.
Who taught him everything, how to hook and how to sing. He taught me everything I know.
He taught me everything I know.
From Hollywood, the Jack Benny Program, with his special guests, the Smothers Brothers.
The trees that fill the breeze with rare and magic perfume. Oh no, it isn't the breeze. No. That's not right.
I said it wasn't the trees.
I know you said it wasn't the trees, but then you said, oh no, it isn't the breeze.
Well, you said it wasn't the breeze.
Well, first it wasn't the breeze, it was the trees. Oh, yeah, well, if it's the trees, it can't be the breeze. And I said, oh, no, it isn't the breeze. So how, I'm awful right. You are right. But just forget everything I've told you. Just say, can it be the trees that fill the breeze? Please? Okay. Can it be the... What? Trees. Can it be the trees that fill the breeze, please? No, I never... That's stupid. How can it be the trees that fill the breeze?
Okay, fellas, okay. I thought I had a good idea, and it didn't work. So if you'll leave now, I'll introduce you later. Huh?
Don't you want to try it again?
No. You tried it once. Well, I'll introduce you, and you'll do something later, huh?
I told you didn't know.
Of course, ladies and gentlemen, you know those are the Smothers brothers. You know, the reason I had them out here at the opening is I thought for a change, it would be kind of nice to have someone else do my theme song instead of that orchestra of mine. See, it's not that I have anything against my musicians, but when the brass section blows through their instruments and those fumes fill the breeze, believe me, it's a rare but not magic perfume. Trouble like that at the opening of a show would upset me, but not anymore. I feel that these things really aren't too important. You know, I found out that the only important thing in life is your health. Yes, sir, that's the important thing. But fortunately, I don't get sick very often because I keep myself in real good condition, you know, physical condition. And the way I do that is by getting plenty of exercise. Every morning, I used to get up at 7 o'clock and turn on my TV set, see, and do all those exercises they show you on television. But after about 8 weeks, I had to stop that. You see, I found out that those exercises were for women, and my whole shape was changing. As a matter of fact, I didn't notice it myself until one day well, I better save that for the Johnny Carson show. And now, ladies and gentlemen, getting on with the show, I'd like to bring on my guests, two very fine entertainers, the Smothers brothers.
Down, boy, turn that old kick round. The only song I ever did sing is bowl that cabbage down. Take it, Tom. No. I said no, I didn't want to take it. You're supposed to take it. Aren't you a folk singer? Yes, but I said no because I didn't want to take it. Wait a minute, you're a folk singer. Have you read the folk singer's guidebook? Yeah, but I didn't want it. And what does the guidebook say? It says all folk singers are obligated to do what? You're obligated to take it. Without hesitation, without thinking, yeah. Like a reflex, Tommy. Take it, Tom. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, when I say take it, hop to it. Boil that cabbage down. Take it, Tom. Boom, boom, boom. Hundreds of years ago, the railroad started in America. Rugged men of yesteryear went out in the wilderness with vision in their eyes and big 9-pound hammers in their hands. went out in the wilderness to build the great spider web of steel rails, the transcontinental railroad to span our country, as these men went out in the wilderness and toiled and inched their way across the vast bosom of America. Thought throw a little sex in the show. But this wasn't just a fun job. There was dangers in this job as they built the railroads up the mountains and down the mountains and across the deserts and over raging rivers, and they had to span crevices, deep crevices in the ground, and in the bottom of the crevices there was pumas. These just pumas with claws and foam coming out of these pumas' mouths, and the railroad men, they're going, "Whoa, look at those pumas down there! I'm not gonna build any railroad across the crowd. There's pumas in that crevice." There were no pumas in the crevices because we don't have pumas here. There are no pumas in America. Well, maybe some came over to visit. They don't visit. Now, if you want to keep your story truthful, you get rid of the pumas right now. I'm not going down that crevice. Well, there was these vicious beasts in these deep crevices, and these railmen said, "Well, look at those vicious beasts in the crevices. They look like pumas." But they weren't. And they were sore afraid, yet the railroads were completed. Yes, the transcontinental railroads were completed, and a big feast was transpired for these rugged railroad men. And the sole subsistence for this big feast for these railroad men, the sole substance was hot cakes boiled in cabbage juice. It's not so popular now. They have to sing about something else. On myself a bicycle, I learned to ride it well. Crashed into a telephone pole and broke it all to pieces. It's down, boys, turn that old cake brown. The only song I ever did sing was boil a cabbage down. Oh, working on the railroad, working all day long. Take it. Judy, have you ever read the Folk Singer's Manual? It says when someone says it, take it, you're supposed to take it. I said it, take it, and you didn't take it. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Really, I'm sorry. Well, don't get belligerent. You didn't take it. I said I'm sorry. That's all I can say. I'm sorry. That's okay then. Don't make any more mistakes. Working on the railroad, working all day long. Take it. Working. Boil that cabbage down, boy. Song I ever did sing is boil that cabbage down, boy. Turn that old cake round. Only song I ever did sing is boil that cabbage down. Boil down.
Fella, that was very, very good.
Thank you.
You know, you boys have been quite successful the last few years. Must make you very happy, huh?
Well, it makes us happy, but it really makes our family very happy, especially our little old grandmother.
Oh, your grandmother, huh?
Yeah, we have a little old grandmother, and she lives up in Barney Gulch, a little town in Northern California, and since things have been going well, nobody ever hardly knew her, but now they refer to her as a Smothers brother's mother's mother.
No.
Yes, she has a mailbox this long.
Oh, all right. Well, fellas, tell me something about yourself. Where did you go to school?
Well, we went to high school down here in Redondo Beach, California, and then we both went to college.
Oh, you went to college, both of you. What'd you study?
Well, I was studying business administration, and Tommy was studying medicine.
He looks like a puma to me. studying medicine?
Yeah, I was going to be a brain surgeon.
A brain surgeon?
Yeah, I couldn't be a Puma. There's no Puma.
You studied to be a brain surgeon?
Yeah, but I decided against it. I mean, you know, I was 18 years old. My mother still was cutting my meat for me.
Well, I can see where that might lessen your confidence.
I was pretty good with a fork, but a knife, I was lousy.
Well, tell me, how did you kids happen to get into show business?
You know, we were watching television, a program, and there was this guy that came out, and he didn't do anything. He just kind of stood around, and he stared at the audience.
Tommy.
He did, too. He just went out, and he stood out there, and he kind of stared at the audience. He didn't do anything. Well, the way I figured, if he could go out there and stand around and do nothing, I guess I figured we could maybe do that. Something. He looked a lot younger on television. He doesn't know what we're talking about.
I do, too. And that was years ago. Anyway, I'm glad I was responsible for you going into show business. Now, I know you're going to do another number, so what's it going to be?
How does he know we're going to do another number?
When he pays, he knows.
Yeah, well, you better pay us plenty, because brain surgeons don't work cheap.
I know. Just do your number.
We'd like to do a song of a young man who just lost his sweetheart and is feeling very sorry for himself. It's entitled, I Never Will Marry. Some say that love is a gentle thing, but it only has caused me pain. For the only girl I ever did love, gone on that midnight train, I never will marry. I'll take me no wife. I expect to live single all of my life.
When I was very young, I remember there was a little girl that lived down the street from me. And we always used to say that when we grew up, we'd be married. And it was sort of a childish thing and a puppy love. Yet as the years went by, this puppy love grew into something very dear and very precious to me. You know, they tell us that love is a gentle thing. But I think each person here who has truly loved and been loved has shed a tear and experienced heartache. And the girl I learned to love so very much broke my heart and left me for another man. Yet I love her still. And I swear by all the stars in the skies that as long as I live, I never will marry. Unless I can marry her. I'll mess around a little bit, though, you know.
Something about those boys that's very familiar. They remind me of a couple of fellas I met when I was in London in 1944. It was during the war, and I was over in Europe entertaining the servicemen. See? And while I was there, I also did a few shows at the London Palladium. Well, one night, the enemy planes came over and put on one of the most devastating air raids of the entire war. I'll never forget it. I had finished my show at the theater, and I was walking back to my hotel, see, when the sirens started to wail, and the bombs dropped, and the searchlights were crisscrossing the sky.
By Jove, they gave us a bit of what for tonight.
Not half. This one's even worse than the other one.
Do you hear something?
Cool another duck. Sounds like we've got a real-life bomber out here.
Blimey, that's a big one.
I ought to go and get the bomb diffusing squad.
Oh, there's a bloke under here.
I better hurry.
Hold on.
What are you doing there?
What am I doing? I try to catch this for a souvenir. What am I doing?
He's an edgy one, isn't he?
American, you know.
Hey, pull this off of me, will you, please?
Hold it. Can you hear it ticking? The slightest little jolt will send the whole thing off.
You mean?
Let me put it this way, Governor. If you sneeze, you'll never hear the Gesundheit.
All right, clear the area. Clear the area. Everybody out. Clear the area. Hey, clear the area. He said everybody clear the area.
For heaven's sake, can't you see I'm trapped under here?
For heaven's sakes, can't you see he's trapped under there?
Get started. Take this thing off.
Tommy, go ahead and get started. Not until he closes his eyes.
Why should I close my eyes?
I don't like anybody looking over my shoulder while I'm working. If I make a little mistake, you'll go blabbing it around to everybody.
If you make a mistake, I won't tell anybody, believe me. Not even the guy who picks up my lips.
Okay, in that case, you can watch.
Well, thank you.
Now, first, we've got to locate the exact area of the mechanism. First, we've got to locate the exact area of the mechanism.
Yeah, I heard of it.
All right, Tommy, you get looking on that end. I'll look on this end. It's getting louder. It's getting louder. That sounds hollow. Tommy. Shh. It's talking to me. Tommy? Hey, the bomb's talking to me. It even knows my name. It said Tommy. I never knew a bomb before. I knew a bullet once.
Really, fellas, please.
Now, let's get this cover up. Look at this clock. What a beautiful mechanism. That's an XK41. That's a Swiss movement. No, the XK41 happens to be a German movement. It's a Swiss movement. It's a German movement. XK41's German. It's a Swiss movement. It is not.
Who cares? Stop talking and work.
It's always the fellas who are just lying around there that keep rushing you.
Well, why wouldn't I rush you? I don't even think you fellas know what you're doing.
Will you too? I just defused the bomb just a little while ago, right over there. Must have been over there. Tommy, I thought you said you defused that bomb. I did what I always do. I detached the white wire from the blue wire. It's supposed to be the green wire from the blue wire. I thought it was the white wire. No. It's always been the green wire from the blue wire. But just a little mistake. I mean, everybody makes a mistake. You know, nobody's perfect. Gee, if everybody was perfect, if you were perfect, and if you were perfect, and I was perfect, what kind of world would this be? This be some world, believe me.
Look, if I want philosophy, I can listen to Bertrand Russell or Jack Parr. Now get back to work, will you?
Okay. Well, according to this clock, we've got about 2 minutes before the bomb goes off. So we better hurry. Yeah, I'll get behind this cogwheel here, and I'll detach this wire right there. Tommy, I just noticed something. Do you know who this is? No, who? That's Jack Benny. You mean the guy that's playing at the Palladium? Yeah, it's Jack Benny. Are you really?
Yes, I'm Jack Benny.
Hey, nice to meet you. Don't get up. Go to the truck and get the guitar.
Yeah. Guitar?
I wanted to get into show business, Mr. Benny, and we'd sure like to do a number for you.
But there's no time. You said yourself there's only 2 minutes left on the bomb.
Great. Tommy, let's do that special song we've been working on. Yeah, that's a...
We've only got 2 minutes.
That's all right. The song takes a minute. It's kind of a funny number. If you feel like laughing, go right ahead.
No. Look at boys.
Oh, what tempo? Jimmy crack corn, I don't care.
No.
Jimmy crack corn, I don't care. Jimmy crack corn, I don't care. Wait a minute, that's not the way it goes. I don't care. How'd you like that one?
Fine.
How about an encore?
Never mind the encore. We've only got a few seconds
You
left.
didn't get it. Let's do it again.
Fella! Fellas, I'm sorry. If I told my producer once, I told him 1,000 times. When we do a sketch, don't use a real bomb.
Hey, Dickie, you know, I can just see it in tomorrow's headlines in the papers. Benny's bomb Smothers Brothers.
The Smothers Brothers.
Thanks, boys. Thanks very much for being on the show.
Yeah, this, you know, this is one of the dirtiest shows I've ever been on.
Ladies and gentlemen, well, that's the show. Good night, folks, and I'll be seeing you soon.